you have not already done so. And if you have any questions during the presentation, you can write them in the chat. As it just came up on our screens, we'll also be recording the session today. So good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining our first virtual event of 2022. We are very sorry to have to cancel the planned in-person luncheon due to this fifth wave of COVID, but we look forward to spending some time with you today via Zoom. I'm Lisa Pegg. I'm the chair of BOMA Saskatchewan. And this year, we are very fortunate to have two corporate sponsors, GDI Ainsworth and BGE Indoor Air Quality Solutions. And we appreciate their support for 2022. I'd also like to thank SaskPower, who are not only providing the speakers today, but are also the event sponsor. There'll be 3 door prize winners and that we will pick from those in attendance, and they'll be announced at the end of the meeting. I'd like to start the meeting by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are gathered on today. We have come together on Treaty 4 territory, which is the traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota. We also acknowledge the traditional homeland of the Métis and honor their contributions. We respect and honor the treaties that were made on all territories and are committed to move forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So I'd like to introduce Mark Cooper. So before we get to our feature speakers, Mark Cooper is the president and CEO of the Saskatchewan Construction Association, to provide a more
we made it up to 20 degrees, but we're going to leave all the temporary
overviews, and to provide a more in-depth overview of a new initiative called Supplier Link. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, Kale. Thanks to everybody from BOMA, and of course to partners like SaskPower and others who help make the work of associations possible. It's something we're all extremely grateful for. I'm very disappointed I couldn't meet with you in person, although I am grateful I didn't have to wear pants. So it's kind of a one loss, one win. But I'm going to share my screen if I can now. So you should be, if it's working, seeing the Supplier Link screen. Lisa, can you nod if you're seeing it?
I can stop sharing. There we go.
Oh, okay. Now you can see it. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Mark Cooper. I'm the CEO of the Saskatchewan Construction Association, and happy to talk to you today about this initiative called Supplier Link Saskatchewan that was launched this summer, or I guess last summer, 2021. Supplier Link is a system that connects buyers and suppliers of services, really enabling the sourcing, management, and pre-qualification of suppliers. It started out as an initiative in construction, but it's expanded quite beyond that to really deal with any service especially, but service or good provided by suppliers and buyers who are interested in purchasing those. And it's a way for those suppliers to showcase themselves to buyers, and to increase their ability to proactively source work. It's also a tool for enhancing the success of Saskatchewan-based companies. And just recently, as we're adding in the functionality to allow buyers to issue competitions and to manage bid submissions within that system as well. And so it really functions as a Saskatchewan-made solution to the sourcing and procurement of suppliers. We built Supplier Link in part because the buyers of services, the owners in the construction industry, had concerns about the amount of paperwork and data that needed to be managed conventionally now with more complicated procurements. They were also looking to de-risk contractor selection for themselves, looking to find new ways to find Saskatchewan-based vendors, and wanted to be able to more effectively engage with local contractors. And we're looking for tools to be able to do that. And some of you may be familiar with tools like ISNet, for instance, which industry has lots of concerns with because it's expensive and it's cumbersome. And so looking for mechanisms that were simpler and easier to use than some of these sort of standard expensive third-party verifiers. And in the process of looking for those things, it was determined that the best thing we could do as an industry was to build one with a focus here in Saskatchewan. And that's why Supplier Link Saskatchewan exists. What makes it different than other platforms is that it was built here on a system that was designed based on the feedback from both industry participants, so suppliers and buyers. The platform shares costs across all users. It's industry driven, it's made in Saskatchewan, as I mentioned, and it's integration friendly. So it's really designed to allow for the continuation of legacy systems where those exist, and it can import and export data as appropriate to supplement the systems that may already be in place. Critically, from a supplier perspective, suppliers only have to have one profile. I'll give you a quick view of sort of what their profiles look like at a very high level. I'm happy to do demos for anybody who would like a demo in the future of how this works, but the supplier doesn't need to have a different profile for each buyer that they're connected with. So they have one profile, they maintain that, and they can access multiple buyers just with that one profile. So it reduces their time and investment to maintain data across the system. What we've heard from buyers, what they like about it is they love that they can find new suppliers, that it allows them to manage suppliers. So what I mean by that is that you can track information around their safety records, their workforce, their project experience, their main contacts, where they like to work, their scopes of work. And so it really gives you the snapshot information on one page on your web browser of the things you need to know about your suppliers. You can use it for pre-qualification, as in you can require, that people be on the system and be able to provide and share certain data points, like, the system enables information around our PST clearance, WCB clearance, things like that, and it automatically pulls from those databases to provide that information as well. It's got a local focus, and that I talked about pulling from other databases. One of the things that's most popular with both sides of the user base is that we have externally sourced and validated data points, by which I mean that, so we'll use WCB as an example. If you need to pull a WCB clearance, you can see it right in the system, and it's updated as to the minute. And so we have a direct integration with WCB database, pulls direct. So that means you don't have to go looking for those things as a buyer, and as the supplier, they don't have to be going and pulling that information on a regular basis. It's all just incorporated right into the system. So quickly, I just want to show you a couple of screens of what it looks like. And so this is, if you can imagine, there was a company called Ideal Electric. These are the kinds of things you'd see in their profile. So you'd see they've mapped out here geographically where they want to work, and it's just like a Google map. You can get it is a Google map. You can get extremely granular to identify the specific communities you want to work in. So if you're looking, say, if you have a project or a facility in North Battleford and you want to look for contractors that can work in that area, you can specify that through the program. You've got some information here on company contacts, their employee metrics, their core certification, if in the construction case, which is actually construction, manufacturing, and heavy construction. So those three we have integrations with already, so that you can verify that they're not just saying they're core certified, they actually are, and it tells you when it expires. You can see the scopes of work that they do, the project types that they have experience in, more details on the project. One of the things that's new to this, and you don't see it on here, is that it also has a contact information. So let's use the case of SaskPower here in this particular project. You don't just need to take their word for it. They can provide a contact information. You can follow up with the person who managed that project at SaskPower to verify that it was accurate. And you can see there, as I mentioned, their WCB clearance, and so it's all pulled as to the minute. You can see how they're performing as a company as compared to their rate code. See their insurance certificates and information that they've uploaded there. That isn't externally validated yet, so the companies have to put this information in. We're working with the insurance industry on this. It's complex because there's so many different brokers and so many different insurers, and so beginning to work through some of that. But high level, you get to see some of the snapshots of what you would see in a supplier system. That's all I'm going to present on today. I would love to provide demos to anybody who is interested in having a new tool to source suppliers, especially local suppliers. We're signing on new suppliers all the time across the spectrum of procurement across Saskatchewan. and happy to deliver a demo anytime. So you can send me an email to my email here or call me, and we'll arrange a demo and walk through the specifics of how it might serve your needs as buyers. So that is all I wanted to present on today, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark, for providing your explanation of SupplierLink and for taking the time to be with us today. Now, I'd like to introduce our two main speakers. We have James Fick he is the lead of the newly formed EV and electrification group within SaskPower's customer solutions team and has been responsible for the department's electric vehicle strategy since early 2020. James is a professional engineer and began his career with SaskPower in 2012. Pat Perot is a program manager with the EV and electrification group within SaskPower's customer solutions team and is also responsible for programs dealing with renewables and industrial customers. Pat began his career with SaskPower in 2010. So over to you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. You know, James and I, we don't get out very much, so we were actually also very excited to meet in person. It seemed novel at the time, but we're in the office and we're excited to be sharing about what we know and what we're doing here, and interested in learning, you know, about your plans with BOMA and that, thoughts and plans as what we've got going on. Because you know, as we're a utility, we have an obvious interest in electric vehicles, but we're also a building. You know, we're building owners, managers here too. So. I'm trying to see how I can. There we go. So we don't often get asked to. Don't often need to introduce ourselves here at SaskPower. So I'll give a couple of highlights, I guess, of what we are. We're Saskatchewan's primary electricity supplier. Just a few tidbits. There's more power poles in the province than people. The ratio of customers to power lines and to power line kilometers of power lines is actually very low. It's we're probably across Canada one of the ones that have the fewest customers per kilometer of power line. I mean, we haven't got a big population, or is it? It's kind of sparsely dispersed across the province. And we'll note here that just on December 31st, as an example, we hit our record peak. So this is the highest demand for electricity across the province. It generally happens coldest night of the year at about 6:30 at night. It happened on December 31st, 2021. So that's, if you can remember that stretch over Christmas, it was pretty cold. Saskatchewan is also a little bit unique in that way, in that we are a winter peaking utility. Most utilities actually peak in the summer. They have an air conditioning load that is what drives up their peak. So we're a little different that way. So EVs and SaskPower. Electric vehicles are part of what we call around here beneficial electrification. And what we mean by that is it's some technologies. I mean, it's not just electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are probably one of the most common ones at the moment. But you know, they help reduce carbon. They save money for you as a customer, and they also obviously bring in some extra revenue for SaskPower that in turn helps us keep rates low. So we like to think of them as, you know, cleaner, cheaper, easier. Electric vehicles are new to the market. I mean, there's about 1,000 electric vehicles in Saskatchewan right now, so it's not a large percentage of the vehicles that are out there, but it's growing, of course. You know, as you've probably heard, many manufacturers, auto manufacturers out there are, you know, they're announcing their plans to expand their, you know, production of electric vehicles, and some are even talking about exiting the manufacturing of internal combustion engines. So, you know, it's coming. And SaskPower, you know, we're doing some work. We're conducting some work and developing a plan to address that, you know, the inevitable that's going to happen here. So we don't have all the answers, but hopefully this presentation can give you some confidence in SaskPower and that it does have plans for the electrification of vehicles. A study was completed. We hired some outside consultants and did some work ourselves and determined, you know, that there's really 3 areas of focus that we are working on right now. Education and awareness, the infrastructure needed for electric vehicles, and something called load management. So this is how we word it here. I would think for yourselves, the questions you probably have are kind of similar to this. Education awareness is, what do I need to know? And the infrastructure is all about what do I need to do? And then the load management is kind of along the lines of when do I need to act? So we'll walk through our questions, and if you have walk through our presentation here, and if you got questions, maybe you can ask, or if you want to send in a chat, we can answer them at the end. Education outreach, what do you need to know? We do have a website with information on it. It is actually going to be getting updated here pretty quick. And we would like to think of ourselves, what do you want? You want a trusted source of information. So we don't necessarily promote electric vehicles, but we try to provide the information that you would need that if you're deciding to get an electric vehicle. So there's a hub of information, education, and awareness on there. We have a number of calculators, tools, and calculators to help you compare, ICE, internal combustion engines, to EVs. We do work in partnership with a number of associations and with industry across the province and even beyond the province. Say it as the Saskatchewan Auto Dealers Association, and then there's 2 electric vehicle driver associations in the province. The SEVA is Saskatchewan EV Association, and that's kind of the southern part of the province. And SaskEV is kind of a driver association more to the north, more out of Saskatoon. And we do regularly survey our customers, EV drivers and association members, to get input into what they need to hear. As an example, some of our more common, one of the things we do that I guess is pretty popular according to the number of Facebook and Twitter responses we get to them, is our Mythbuster blog series. So we've done a few of those over the years. We do have others that are coming out to address some of the most, the common myths that are about EVs. I like to, as it's cold and it's winter right now, the winter driving one that was put out last year, I think is a good example of some of the stuff that we have. It does all the information in there. The quotes were from Saskatchewan drivers. So we surveyed the associations. We've got drivers, and they talked about their experiences. And it's really on days like today where some of the advantages of an EV can be demonstrated. You can preheat your car, and you can get into your car while you don't have to open the garage. There's no exhaust. And then, of course, there's not a lot of going to the gas pump, because most drivers will, 95% of your charging will happen at home. So you just plug in when you get home at the end of the day. The second area of focus is the charging infrastructure. So this is along the lines of, what do you need to do? And we'll talk a little bit more detail about that. But what SaskPower is doing is starting to look at ways to support the development of the charging infrastructure in the province. So we've been engaging. We're going to be launching a program here in the next few weeks that's looking to get third parties interested in hosting, developing, owning, operating these fast charging stations. You may have seen them out at like in the Canadian Tire parking lot, or Petro Canada, or the co-op right by my house has an EV charger on it. Those are the fast chargers, and that's what this program is looking to do. Charging is probably, as BOMA members, is probably what you're thinking of too, as we know, what kind of chargers should I be putting in? So just on the charger thing, just a quick note on the types of chargers out there, because you may hear that there's different levels of chargers. Level 1, so level 1 is just the outlet you have in your wall. It's a regular outlet you have in your garage. To note, as we survey our electric vehicle drivers in Saskatchewan, about half of the people who charge their vehicles just plug into a regular outlet in the wall. If you're driving, 20, 25 kilometers a day on average, which is the average that's out there, yeah, then this would be fine. You just plug into your wall, and your car will be charged. Will maintain a charge on it. Level 2 is a higher level charging, which people can install in their home. I mean, if they want, it will speed up the charging. So if you go from 0, if you plug into a wall, that regular outlet's probably 8 to 10 hours to charge your vehicle from 0. If you up the voltage that comes through there, the same kind of voltage that you have for your dryer or for your maybe your oven, you can get that charging to about 4 hours. And this is one of the ones that's probably more common to you. These level 2 chargers is probably something you'd be interested in at your properties to charge for employees or for visitors or stuff like that. Our program is looking at getting level 3 chargers out there. So that is kind of the gas station experience where you can charge your car in 30 to 45 minutes or something. So the program is going to be launched. Those are known as direct current fast chargers. And it's really looking to get chargers in underserved areas in the province. Right now, the province along the #1 highway, Saskatoon and Regina, are kind of okay for fast chargers for what for the volume of vehicles that come through now. It's really those highways, 16 that can use some more chargers, especially in the rural areas, or Highway 11, particularly we think like a town like Davidson could use some more chargers. And then the road from Calgary that goes, or from Saskatoon that goes off to Calgary, those to Kindersley and Rosetown. Those would be the priority areas that we'd be looking at to get some direct, some DC fast chargers in them. Load management is a little bit about what do you need to, when do you need to worry about this? And, this sort of comes up a little bit about, can the grid handle the EVs? And yeah, it's all about peak. If people come home, like it was mentioned, we had our record peak here in that peak period time, generally 6:30 at night, coldest night of the year, but our peak period time in January and February is at 6 to 9 p.m. for a few months. That's when we usually operate at our peak load in the province. So if everybody who drives an EV comes home, plugs in at 6 o'clock and starts charging their, that's a charging on peak. So we're looking at having some programs to move that charging off peak, ideally, either in a passive way or some programs that offer rebates or incentives or things like that, or more of an active way to some control over the chargers. Because we need to deliver a load management program for us here at the utility. It's probably not different than you as I don't know if you're thinking about this as a business owner, but you need to know, how many of these EVs are going to start showing up, how many of them, what kind of charging are they going to need? This is the kind of thing exactly what we need to know. So we actually do have a program in the market right now for electric vehicle drivers that is trying to get that information for us, called Smart Charge Saskatchewan. And it is, you get a little tracker that goes into the utility port of your electric vehicle, and it's going to keep track of your driving habits and of your charging habits. So people sign up for the program, and there's some incentives and stuff like that to do that. And we currently have 119 participating in the province. So that's providing details for us to, who's loading or who's charging, where are they charging, how much are they charging, what are their driving habits, so that we then can best understand how to manage the grid and make future plans going forward to handle as more and more people start to drive electric vehicles. There are some incentives and that are out there, just to note. I mean, some of the like this electric vehicle program, or this fast charging program that we're going to launch to get those fast chargers across the province in Saskatchewan, is getting some federal government money. We've used some of the federal government money to also for awareness. We've created some videos and some other education and awareness information are from NRCan funding. And if anybody's interested in buying an electric vehicle, there still is some vehicle rebates that are available out there from the federal government. So here's a couple of artist renditions of our two main buildings, anyways, or at least two main buildings we plan on having here in Regina. We are, like I said, we're building owners and managers too. We have the same issues as anybody else. Our head office right now is just, may or may not be aware if you're in Regina, is under renovations. But those renovations are including putting some charging in the front. I mean, sort of, if you look at the picture of the head office there in the top right-hand corner, there's that fountain up front, and there's a little red car out there, which you might be able to see. There is plans to put a fast charger there. So that'll be available to the public. That'll be available to employees or anybody who wants to use it. There is in our parking lot, some of the stalls have been converted. So, and we're looking to find employees with electric vehicles to get employees parking, electric vehicle parking in here. That will be level 1. That'll just be your regular outlet that you plug. You could plug your block heater into or whatever, but it's the same. It's not a parking lot controller. We've taken out the parking lot controllers. Those don't necessarily work with EVs. And those sort of electric vehicle infrastructure charging will also go into the logistic warehouse, which will also include charging that'll be available for our fleets. So not only our fleet of external vehicles and trucks, but also for, let's say, the forklifts that would be used out in the logistics warehouse. I think the logistics warehouse is planned on moving in 2026, so that may not be for a little bit. Okay, here's our point of saying, okay, what questions? Any questions or comments or thoughts? I'd be curious to know what other if there's anyone out there who is having plans. I mean, one of the things we would be interested in knowing is what plans building owners do have, or what their thoughts are about charging and putting some charging into their facilities. Any takers?
One question I have,
Sure.
In regards more for at your house, and trying to avoid plugging in at the prime load, would there be a, you can put a timer on your lights? Could you actually plug it in, but actually not have power going to it until later?
I think one of the things is the most electric vehicles, if not probably all of them, is you can just program that into your car. Like the car will actually do that. So you'll have the opportunity to set it to say, I want to have a minimum 40% of the battery load, but only start charging it fully at like starting after 9 o'clock or after midnight or something. So that would be a standard feature in most electric vehicles. You wouldn't have to have an external, like for your block heater timer, we used to have a program where we gave you those timers and you had to pull the little pins and all that. No, I think it'd be much easier on an electric vehicle.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. The Central Vehicle Agency is having plans. We are in a very high level, early stages to have potentially some charging stations here at the agency. We're just researching and starting to see how it works.
And so I'm not familiar with your agency. What do they do? Or
The Central Vehicle Agency is the agency that provides leasing vehicles for government employees.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we have in our fleet, we have a pool cars where any employee can get the car. There's 3 of them right now. We have 3 electric vehicles, and they, I think the meter readers also have one of them too, I believe. So we don't have any special charging, or I shouldn't say that. I think out in Saskatoon, up at our facility in Saskatoon, they have a level 2 charger. Because that, I believe, is for meter readers, and I think the rotation of the number of miles that it does, it may need to be fast charged overnight. But they've been using that car with meter readers for quite a while and haven't had any issues with it, nor have they really. I think our cars in our pool, though, are a little older. I'm not sure that they go much out of Regina. I don't think the Hyundai Ioniqs can actually, especially if it gets really cold or whatever, can they go from Saskatoon to Regina? But I mean, that will just expand that. I mean, that fleet's a small kind of I think there's only 6 or 10 cars or something for employees to use.
One
you
of
guys
the
had
questions,
Sure.
sorry, is level 2 in Saskatoon only. And are there none in Regina so far?
So level 2 chargers, so that would be a level 2 charger just for the SaskPower facility. If you go back to on this slide, this map comes from an app that's available, a link off of our site, but it's also available. You just download it to your phone, and it'll identify where all the the fast chargers, the level 3 fast chargers, and the level 2 chargers, at least that are on the map here. You can see they're all across the province. Level 2s mostly. It's the faster ones that are we need more of. Was that the question? Does that answer? Like, yeah, because there's not just one level 2 charger in Saskatoon. Like my in-laws live in Saskatoon, and they have a level 2 charger in their garage.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. That was just like for the SaskPower pilot that you guys are creating, only have you're basing it only in one level 2 station in Saskatoon, and then the rest you're getting them charged here in Regina. Just for your pilot, I mean, I understand that there's more chargers around Saskatchewan.
Most of SaskPower's fleet is medium and heavy duty trucks. So the options to purchase those kind of vehicles electric is not really there yet. So I mean, the real challenge will come when that fleet goes electric.
Hey I have a question about. Oh,
go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I just have a quick question about kind of the map here. I think another consideration that we've looked at is you see the locations across the province, but there's sometimes different ways where you need to pay at the level 2 or level 3 charging pumps. Like sometimes you might need an app to download, and sometimes you need a credit card. So, because I know that's something we're looking at a pilot project, if we have a government purchase card or a fleet card, and we have these locations across the province, we might not be able to use every single one because they would need like a government issued phone to download an app to pay for some. So I'm not sure if there's any plans with the map to like identify the payment method, or when you're going through your pilot project, if the plan is to be able to accept kind of Visa or MasterCard or things like that.
Hey, yeah, so I can talk a little bit about that. So yeah, I mean, depending on, so the map that's shown there on the left is a map that's generated from a website called PlugShare, and so that's basically like the Google Maps for EV charging. So anybody can use it. You can go on there, and actually, when you pick on a specific location, oftentimes it'll tell you like what the power level is. It'll tell you the rate that the organization or the company might charge you to use their charger if it's public. And sometimes it'll often indicate the payment method, but typically a lot of chargers are often on a network. So some of the main ones you may have heard of are ChargePoint or Flow, are kind of a couple of the main ones that are in Canada and also in the US. And they will typically use an app to pay, but there are lots of chargers that also accept credit card readers. It just kind of depends on the company, and so oftentimes the go-to for most EV drivers right now is really check and PlugShare. So if you want to, it even has like a route planner. So like if you have staff who are taking an EV, say from Yorkton to Regina or something like that, then they want to plan the route and make sure that they're going to have enough range to get there. PlugShare is kind of the go-to for that, and that can also help you figure out how are we gonna have to have people pay for these. As far as SaskPower's pilot, I mean, we don't have a charger pilot. Like we have the program coming out, the funding program, but we won't be building those chargers. Those chargers will be built, owned, and operated by third parties. We are essentially providing kind of funding to kind of help spur that development and help the business case, but we won't be owning and operating those stations. So we won't be developing like our own charging network. We're just looking to kind of help the market and help some of the charger development in areas where are maybe less attractive kind of for initial investment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Because I think that route, that link at, would you say PlugShare for planning routes and things like that. Yeah, that's great, especially when it's got the payment method and things like that, because we're just kind of in the stages of starting to test charging outside of our building here. So
Sure.
Planning the routes with that website's great.
Yeah, you bet.
Hey guys, Great job. Thank you for presenting. I have a couple of questions. One is on your funding program, and James and I have talked before. Sorry, my camera is not working. It's just showing the back of my cubicle. The funding program from SaskPower, what is the timeline on that? And sorry if I missed it in the presentation.
Yeah, no, hi Curtis. Yeah, thanks for the question. So yeah, the funding program we're planning to launch in February, hopefully. Right
Okay.
now, looking at the second week of February, and then projects. There's quite a bit of flexibility, but really, like the kind of the hard deadline for projects is they'll need to be in service by, say, kind of late 2023. So like say mid November 2023, and that's kind of largely driven by NRCan funding requirements, because as Pat mentioned, that program does leverage some federal funding that we were awarded. So we have to meet their obligations as well as our own.
Okay, great. Thanks. Second question, Pat had it on one of his slides, this myth that because of SaskPower's coal grid, that EVs are a net negative when it comes to carbon. And we've done the math and kind of know that that's wrong, but can you just touch on that again?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but yeah, I think roughly like the most recent calculation that was done is because of the supply mix that we've got, right? We do have a not an insignificant amount of renewables generating on the grid, and so because EVs are a lot more efficient, in addition to kind of the supply mix there, I think the last calculation was about they're about third cleaner right now based on kind of the current supply mix. And obviously as the generation supply mix cleans up, by that I mean we get kind of more renewables or more kind of carbon neutral generation, obviously that will become better and better.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
I'll ask one more, and just because I haven't done the math yet and giving people lots of time to think of their questions.
Sure.
So I get an average sedan EV here in Saskatchewan in Regina, and I want to charge that with solar on my house, and I want to drive the average for Canadians, 15,000 or 20,000 kilometers a year. How much solar am I looking at? Do you guys know in kilowatts that I got to put on my roof?
It's a good question. Let me think about this for a second. So I've got kind of a thing that I cooked up here. It's a pretty detailed question, but I'll see if I can actually give you a little bit of an answer. So like, I guess the one important consideration with the solar and charging your EV is oftentimes based on kind of the example you gave, Curtis. Like if you're working a typical, 8 to 5, a lot of times you're going to be charging your vehicle for the most part when your solar is not generating, or at least not generating at its peak, right? So if you're going to look to kind of utilize that kind of method, which I think would be really cool, you might have to look at having some battery to kind of augment that, or at least be able to take advantage of the peak generating period, kind of mid-afternoon. But I think in the Smart Charge program, we're kind of seeing roughly, say, average energy consumed for an EV per day is about 10.75 kilowatt hours. So I guess you can kind of take that and kind of extrapolate based on the details of kind of the system you'd like to put in, and again, kind of the timing of when you're going to charge. I think is a big variable that people often have to consider is how are you going to kind of bridge that gap from the peak generating period of your solar system to kind of the peak charging period of your vehicle.
The amazing net metering program that you guys still allow was the plan. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet, Curtis. Thanks.
Hey guys, it's Lee here with SaskBuild. I got a question. It might be a little bit of a fancy question, but what's your guys' 5-year forecast? Like you guys mentioned, there's 1,000 EVs right now and a handful of charging stations. Like, how quickly is this going to grow? Like, what's your rate of growth over the next 5 years, and where do you see this kind of growing to?
Yeah, so I think to be honest, I don't have the specific 5-year number right now. The last thing that I looked at was I guess last year's forecast. So like SaskPower's internal load and revenue forecast, they produce an annual forecast, which are actually working on the updated version right now as we speak. And so the kind of the number that I'm giving you is kind of largely based off last year's forecast. But I think that they project about around 21,000 EVs by, I think it was 2030. But I will caveat that with, we've kind of got quite a bit more information since that forecast was produced. The forecasting piece is something big that we're kind of working on right now, both kind of specifically as it relates to just EVs alone, as well as kind of the broader kind of beneficial electrification portfolio that Pat kind of briefly touched on, which could include anything like, electric heat or whatever it may be. That's a big piece that our load and forecasting group is working on. And I think they'll be working on a more detailed forecast for this upcoming year, because previously most of the forecasting has been solely based on like light duty vehicles, right? Because largely that's all that's been available. But with the Ford F-150 Lightning coming out, the electric GMC Silverado being announced, all those sorts of things, right? That mix of EVs on the road is really going to start to change, and so we've got to start breaking the forecasts down into not only light duty vehicles but medium duty and eventually heavy duty. And so the forecasting job is the job of the guys working in the forecasting group is going to become more and more complicated, but also it's going to be a lot more valuable, I think, when we get similar questions to yours.
Nice, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I have a question that has come up on the chat. Cameco here, and we are researching what is needed or required for our head office. Some employees have personal EV vehicles already. Just seeing what's out there.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess for Cameco or for any other kind of organizations or like building owners and managers, kind of one of the first steps would be to kind of get an assessment done or do your own assessment and forecast. And I mean, to be honest, we're kind of in the processes of doing some of that stuff in our for our own facilities. And is number one, getting an idea of how many EVs does the organization predict on having that they're going to want to charge and plug in at their various locations, and number two, for their employees, how many EVs do they have now, and then kind of get a sense of forecasting out how many do they predict they're going to have, and those are things that if you reach out to any one of the charging vendors, or there's lots of engineering consultants that can offer those types of services, or maybe even a company like Cameco might have those resources in-house. I won't pretend to know that for sure, but those will kind of be some starting points. I know if you reach out to kind of any one of the charging vendors, they can kind of give you a pretty good rundown and introduction to some of both the fleet and the workplace charging offerings that they have. It can include things like managed charging or power sharing, which can help reduce some of the electrical infrastructure requirements, right? So you don't have to you can really reduce on cabling and required capacity in your electrical panels and all that sort of thing. So those are kind of a couple good places to start and things to think about.
I'll also throw out there that Cameco is one of the key accounts here at SaskPower. So there is a program called the Power Support Service that can help you look at that. So if you wanted to get a hold of me, we could chat specifically about Cameco and about your facilities, not only the head office in Saskatoon, but electrification in general, like up at the mine site and that.
So this is more just a comment, but Innovation Place has recently installed a level 2 charger for our tenants. I'm not sure what the uptake has been so far, as it was just installed recently. There's another question here. Hey, James, the Mythbuster post about driving gas-powered vehicles, coal, etc., doesn't seem to be available online based on my searches.
Sure. So all those blog posts are available on the SaskPower.com blog, and I'm actually just kind of trying to go through it here to see if I can find it. But so to find that, I don't know why they wouldn't show up in a Google search. That's weird. I'll maybe reach out to our communications folks to ask about that. But the easiest way to get to the SaskPower.com blog is just go to SaskPower.com, and then if you scroll down a little bit, there'll be an orange banner across the bottom with kind of starts with blog, and then right now I think the main one they've got up there is a status update for Boundary Dam 3. And so if you click that, it'll take you to that blog post, and then on there you can have a link to the blog homepage. And I think the link to the blog is also probably in one of the drop downs, but if I'm being honest, that's kind of the way that I get to it the quickest. And then so I guess here the one thing I can do is I'll share the link to just directly to the main blog page in the chat. I can do this. Yeah, sure. If you want it, Pat, I can share my screen and show what I'm looking at here. Okay. So right now I'm on the, so this is just the SaskPower.com blog. So it's that link that I sent in the chat there. And if you scroll down, we've got some of our posts here. The first one I saw here somewhere. So here's I think this is one of the latest ones we did, which is electrical grid can't handle EVs. And then if you go down to the bottom, you can load previous posts. And then I think, so here's the electric vehicles can't handle our cold Saskatchewan winters. And then the other one should be a little bit farther down. It's obviously a little bit of a jog. So I'll definitely have to ask why they're not being found through a Google search. Because so here's the one about electric vehicle can't go as far as a gas vehicle. I think that's the one that they were asking about, was it? I can't see the chat right now, so. Here, let's see. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Do we have a Mythbusters post about the emissions mix? I think that's just something that is just on the saskpower.com/EV page where we have information about the kind of the supply mix and how the emissions work out a little bit there. But if you have any more specific questions about that, I'm happy to. You can shoot us an email. The easiest way to kind of get a hold of us is electrification@saskpower.com email address. Be happy to kind of share any more details, or if you have any more specific questions about that, I can certainly help you out.
Any more, as we're coming closer to the end here? Are there any more questions?
Sure, I have one. I'm just wondering what you think the practicality of electrical vehicles is for people living in more remote communities. I understand the appeal of, living in Saskatoon or Regina and doing your daily commute, but it takes 5 minutes to fill up your vehicle with gas, whereas it takes 45 minutes to charge a vehicle. So just kind of want your input on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it obviously kind of depends on how far your commute is and all that sort of stuff. I mean, if you live in a rural area, if you're a farmer or just you live in a smaller center and you commute in all the time, it kind of depends on how many kilometers you drive, what's the nature of your of how you're driving. I would say I think they're becoming far more practical all the time, right? Like there's talk, like a lot of vehicles now will have 500 kilometer plus rated range, which is quite a bit. And as more fast chargers and particularly more higher power fast chargers come online, that 45-minute charging time will start to decrease. And I think the other thing is myself included in this, we have a tendency to kind of look at EVs and trying to drive them and fuel them in a similar fashion to the way we do gas vehicles. And that's not necessarily, I don't think, going to be how things go. I think it could be a lot more like, shorter stops, quicker trips, but also in a lot of day-to-day driving, even if you live in a rural location, if you have enough range to kind of get to where you need to go and back, I mean, you just plug it in when you get home and you don't even have to go to the gas station or to a charging station, right? So it's a little bit of a kind of a shift in how we think about how we drive our vehicles and how we fuel them. But I will agree, though, there are some of the range limitations on vehicles right now makes them far less practical for people living in rural areas. But as battery technology gets better and better, again, we're starting to see vehicles with 500 plus kilometers of range. And so I think we're definitely getting to a point now where they're practical for people even in rural areas.
I'll add to that, James, although I would say, because we do have a number of farmers out there, literally, who've set up solar and are charging their cars. I just think of a guy outside by Gull Lake who's driving into Swift Current every day. The more kilometers you put on, the more the value of the electric vehicle is. So he's telling me he's driving into Swift Current every day, which is probably 100 kilometers there and back or something like that, and he's saving a fortune. I mean, on my own brother works at K+S outside of the city here, and he's got an electric vehicle, and it's about an hour, so it's an hour and a half drive return every day, and the value of savings on fuel anyways, and maintenance and all that kind of stuff, it's really bringing down the payback on that car.
Any other questions? Looks like, let me see here. Oh, there's one that just came in. What is SaskPower doing to move away from coal? And will we ever move to nuclear?
Yeah, I was bound to go. You want to take it, Pat, or you want me to take it?
To move away from coal, certainly we have a plan for 2050 to get 50% of our capacity on renewables. So that's ongoing, and there is some chitter chat about the federal government speeding up, accelerating the our renewable targets to be sooner, not sooner in 2030, but I mean there's long range ones that were 2050 that they may move sooner. So hard to say. Wait for that. And for nuclear is still under study. There is a team here at SaskPower that's looking at small modular reactors, and it's a long process to get those implemented. I mean, just the licensing and the stakeholder engagement and the site planning. I don't know, you're looking at what, 5-10 years or something like that. So they're not, I don't think any decision's been made on nuclear yet. I know that there is some small modular reactors that are planned to go into Ontario, and certainly SaskPower will look at those first and see how well they work, and that will greatly help us get more information to determine whether we want to move, bring some of those here.
All right, well, we're getting close to the hour. So is there any last comments that you'd like to make, either Pat or James or both?
No, like I said, I got up on the screen. I think it's up on the screen.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, get in a hold of us at electrification@saskpower.com. If you have other questions, think of something that's coming up in the future, or if you are considering installing some kind of a charging system in your facility for your employee parking or for tenant parking, or whatever your situation is, we'd certainly be interested in talking about that and seeing if we can get you some information.
Sounds great. James, do you have anything, or?
No, I think Pat nailed it there. I'll just thanks for giving us the opportunity to present and talk about electric vehicles, and yeah, it was happy to do it, and thank you for all the questions as well.
Great. Well, thank you, James and Patrick. This is very timely information for our members, and we appreciate you both speaking to us today. As a small token of appreciation, BOMA Saskatchewan will make a $50 donation in your names to the charity of your choice, and Kale will be in touch with you in that regard. So before we sign off today, excellent. Before we sign off today, our next luncheon meeting is scheduled for February the 17th at the Atlas Hotel, but watch the upcoming e-news, as we may have to change that meeting to a virtual as well. We have Mike Tate from the Economic Development Regina and Alex Fallon of the Saskatoon and Region Economic Development Authority providing updates. Should be very informative and interesting. We also have a breakfast meeting scheduled for March the 24th at the Atlas Hotel with member Adrian Lusick of Hudson Energy, Just Energy Advanced Solutions, talking on energy cost risk management. Now, I will announce our door prize winners. The winners of a SaskPower t-shirt are Chuck Runge with the SHA and Audrey Kuhn from McCore. And the winner of a Honeywell Wi-Fi thermostat is Adam Failer with the ministry. So congratulations. Kale will arrange the delivery of those prizes to you. Thanks again to SaskPower for being our sponsor today. Your support of BOMA Saskatchewan is greatly appreciated. Just a quick reminder also to send in your award applications by the deadline of March 31st. Details of these awards can be found in the e-news. Take care, be safe, and stay healthy. We'll watch for the opportunity to meet again in person again soon. So have a great day, everyone.